Welcome back to the channel. In this second episode, we continue our journey from the birth of Earth to the dawn of humans. Each chapter of this story is designed to soothe you into sleep, even as you learn how oceans formed, life emerged, and humans took their first steps. Stay with us until the end for 5 minutes of captivating insights you'll carry with you into dreams. Now lie back and let's begin episode 2. In the young arms of a newborn star, dust swirled into destiny. Clumps collided, heat arose, and gravity sculpted the third stone from the sun. Earth was born not with peace but with violence. A molten cradle turning fast, its skin a sea of fire. And then came the impact. A wandering world, Thea, struck with apocalyptic might, its bones mingling with Earth's. From that chaos, a silver companion was cast into the sky. The moon, shaped from Earth's own flesh and flame. It danced into orbit, taming Earth's tilt, slowing her days, and calling the tides into motion long before oceans were born. Even in ruin, creation whispered. Even in collision, beauty bloomed. The moon became a mirror, reflecting the wild birth of Earth, and watching ever since. With the moon in place, Earth roared alone. Her skin cracked and belched flame. Volcanoes covered continents to be, spilling lava like blood across bone. There was no green, no blue, only crimson skies and lightning splitting the ash-thick dark. But within that torment, water arrived. From icy comets, from steam rising from Earth's core. The sky wept for centuries. Rain lashed the stone in endless storm until the world cooled and the great oceans pooled. A mirror of the stars was born on Earth, a place where molecules could gather, touch, divide, remember, and become. Lightning struck the shallow seas, awakening carbon and hydrogen, the restless elements that would learn to dream. Volcanoes still raged, but now they fed the sea with minerals, feeding the soup of origin. Beneath the pressure, heat and salt, something stirred. The planet still burned, but in that firelight, life began to whisper. Earth's breath began heavy. Its first atmosphere, primordial, unkind, was born from volcanic sighs. Carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, hydrogen sulfide. No oxygen, no ozone. A sky that would choke today's lungs was then a womb. The sun, young, unstable, bathed this alien air with ultraviolet light. Radiation cracked molecules, a silent alchemist forging complexity from chaos. Beneath, the oceans simmered with prebiotic potential. In those tide-kissed pools and deep-sea vents, simple compounds danced. Formaldehyde, hydrogen cyanide, methane. Ancestors of amino acids. In 1953, Stanley Miller and Harold Urey echoed this past. With lightning and gas, they recreated Earth's ancient breath and synthesized life's very letters: glycine, alanine, urea. Organic whispers from inorganic silence. On the ocean floor, hydrothermal vents hissed. There, under crushing pressure, minerals like iron-sulfur catalysts became silent midwives to the first metabolic reactions. Some theories speak of clay crystals, templates for RNA strands to align, the first lines of the genetic poem. Others name panspermia, suggesting life's spark arrived riding stardust, hidden in meteorites like the Murchison meteorite, which carried over 70 amino acids. When it fell to Australia in 1969, whether seeded from the stars or kindled in Earth's own crucible, the message was clear. Complexity was rising. Carbon joined with hydrogen. Oxygen flirted with nitrogen. Chains grew longer, and among them, one learned to copy itself. RNA, life's first scribe, before DNA, before cells. A lone molecule that could carry, copy, and catalyze. The first breath had no lungs. The first life had no eyes. But now, there was a record, a memory, and the long symphony of evolution had its first note. In the darkness of deep seas, where light could not reach, where pressure could crush bones not yet imagined, life began not as beasts, but as breathless sparks in salty silence. From the stew of ancient elements, one form arose. Not grand, not glowing, but enduring. It had no nucleus, no limbs, no eyes, just a whisper of membrane and a will to divide. These were the prokaryotes, the first cells, simple, yet sovereign, capable of storing energy, of healing their shape, of reaching through time. All life remembers them, in blood, in breath, in the very way we convert sugar to flame. And before them all, a ghost of an ancestor lost to time. Luca, the last universal common ancestor. Not the first life, but the parent of all known things. She lived not in myth, but in the warm vents beneath the sea, feeding on hydrogen, shunning oxygen, humming the first verses of biochemistry. She bore children with ribosomes, shared genes in loops of RNA, used water as her cradle and time as her tool. No fossils mark her passing, but her signature is etched in every cell, every seed, every shadow that breathes. From her line came division. Some children learned to eat light, phototrophs, capturing the sun's fire. Others devoured sulfur, iron, and stone. They filled the seas with exhaled gases. They bred by the billions and turned Earth from chaos into a canvas. They saw no stars. They knew no names. But they became the spark from which we all are kindled. And the universe, for the first time, had watchers. Silent, drifting, microscopic, but alive. It began unnoticed. No trumpet of change, no flash of war. Just sunlight falling on blue-green mats of silent life, floating in shallow ancient seas. They were cyanobacteria, simple, stoic, survivors. Harnessing sunlight, not for warmth or beauty, but to split water, to breathe in carbon and exhale oxygen. At first, the gas was nothing, an afterthought. It met the oceans and vanished, bound up by iron, turning seas blood-red with rust. But the production did not cease. Day after day, for millions of years, these humble cells turned sunlight into surplus, and the skies began to change. Slowly, the air thickened, the oceans cleared, and what had once been a poison to life became the breath of the future. Yet not all welcomed it. Many of Earth's earliest creatures died in silence, unable to live in this new world of fire-breathing skies. The Great Oxygenation Event, 2.5 billion years ago, was not only a gift, it was a reckoning. But oxygen brought more than death. It brought possibility, new chemistry, stronger bonds, faster reactions, and the chance for something more. Beneath the waves, some cells began to adapt, to embrace the change, to build new engines powered by oxygen. Engines we now call mitochondria. And with that, the age of simple cells took its first step toward complexity. The air shimmered with new potential. Sky turned blue. Clouds swirled above green tides. And though no eyes yet watched it happen, the planet was rehearsing for the long arc of evolution. The world was no longer merely alive. It was becoming aware. Beneath the restless tides, where oxygen now swirled like an unseen tide, a quiet revolution took root. Not in noise or number, but in structure. One cell, once simple, swallowed another. Not in hunger, but in harmony. And that union did not end in death. It bloomed. The swallowed became mitochondria, engines of breath, masters of energy. A new kind of life emerged. Eukaryotes, with inner architecture, organized, compartmentalized, able to hold thoughts before thoughts were born. Within them, a nucleus, a sanctuary for genes, instructions wrapped in helixes, now protected, preserved, refined. This was no longer chance in a puddle. It was strategy, memory, possibility. These cells learned to specialize, to grow bigger, to form alliances, to become more than one. From this elegance came the roots of every animal, every tree, every blade of grass, not by explosion, but by patient, cellular grace. The story of us was now etched not in stone, but in cytoplasm. Some of these pioneers became algae, painting coastlines green. Others slithered unseen, predators and grazers in microscopic jungles. Time stretched. Billions of years passed. But deep in the oceans, the blueprint of complexity was being tested, refined, perfected, and in the quiet, multicellularity began. Cells linked, not just to live, but to live together, to share tasks, to divide purpose, to form bodies. The stage was nearly set. The curtain trembled, and in the primordial dark, something was about to bloom. The earth held its breath. The ocean stirred, not with waves, but with a sudden riot of shapes. For 3 billion years, life whispered, soft, slow, unseen. But now, like a galaxy of thought bursting into being, the seas awoke with movement. This was the Cambrian explosion, 540 million years ago. A blink in Earth's long dream, yet a storm of evolution like none before. Skeletons, spines, shells, eyes opened for the first time, gazing into blue voids, searching, fleeing, hunting. Trilobites scuttled like armored riddles. Anomalocaris sliced the water with hungry grace, a predator of light and reflex. Creatures swam upside down, burrowed, floated, flashed. Some wore spikes, others shimmered with strange symmetry. Before this moment, life had form. But now, it had intention. Limbs to crawl, fins to steer, eyes to see, brains to choose. Natural selection danced like a composer, sculpting survival from the clay of chance. Oxygen, now thick in the sea, fueled muscle, fueled speed, fueled thought. DNA, once quiet, now sang symphonies of variation, and with every replication, new notes were added. Ecosystems formed, prey and predator, shelter and shadow, algae forests and reef-like realms. No longer just survival. Now, life interacted. Life shaped life. It was no longer enough to exist. You had to adapt or vanish. And though none of these beings knew, their choices shaped a distant future. In them were the echoes of vertebrates, the seeds of insects, the blueprint of hands. The sea became a cradle of invention, and every ripple was a prophecy. The sea had birthed wonders, but the land was still a desert of stone and wind, a canvas untouched by root or foot. For a time, Earth's surface baked beneath a sun unfiltered, its air rich in oxygen, yet lacking in shelter, in green, in grace. But life, persistent, patient, had learned ambition. It began at the edges. Mats of cyanobacteria crept onto moist rocks. Then came lichens, quiet unions of fungus and algae, breaking stone into soil, carving the first path for roots to come. Soon, the first plants followed, tiny, liverwort-like, clinging to wet ground. No flowers, no fruits, no trees, but they drank sunlight and held firm. They thickened the air with moisture, wove carbon into their bodies, and exhaled oxygen skyward. A gift and a warning. With time came ferns, then towering forests, lycopods the size of buildings, their trunks etched in spiral scars. The land turned green, and the sky turned dark with clouds. Meanwhile, in shallow waters, fens were shifting. Some fish learned to gulp air, to push themselves onto muddy banks with stubby fins that were almost limbs. Tiktaalik, half swimmer, half walker, was among the first. She blinked in sunlight, her bones whispering the future shape of wrists and ankles. Amphibians followed, breathing through skin, laying eggs in water, their lives half in sea, half on land. Bridges between two worlds. The land was no longer silent. It croaked, buzzed, hissed. It rustled with wind through primitive trees, and from the soil, insects rose, some as large as eagles, feeding on the dense, oxygen-rich air. Life had left the ocean's womb. It walked now, and soon it would run. Time rippled on. Forests thickened. Rivers carved valleys. And from the stillness of swamps and ferns, a new kind of heartbeat stirred. Cold, patient, scaled. Reptiles emerged, not bound to water like the amphibians before them, but armored against dryness, their eggs sealed in shells, carried not by tides but by sun-warmed soil. They were quiet at first, small, cautious, hiding in the shadows of trees. But the world was changing. Hotter, drier, with vast interiors now ripe for conquest. And they rose to meet it. Their skin held water. Their lungs drank deeply. Their bones, once soft with amphibian burden, became bold and hollowed for strength. Then came the architects of awe, archosaurs, ancestors to giants. From them came teeth like knives, jaws like gates, and claws that gripped both ground and fate. The age of reptiles had begun. They walked like thunder. Stegosaurus, armored with plates. Apatosaurus, long-necked and slow as dusk. And from the shadows, raptors, sleek and cunning, whispered the blueprints of birds. Some learned to leap, to glide, to stretch skin between finger bones and catch the sky. And the skies responded. Pterosaurs, with wingspans wider than rooms, became the first vertebrates to fly. They soared over oceans, their cries echoing across time. And the earth, now a mosaic of continents, roared with life. Volcanoes still groaned. Meteorites still watched from afar. But for millions of years, reptiles ruled the land, the sea, the sky. They did not know what waited. They did not know what silence was coming. But in their age of dominance, another thread was spinning. Soft-bodied, warm-blooded, small and hidden. Mammals. And through them, a spark would be carried forward. The age of giants could not last forever. Above the trees and across the plains, a silent harbinger hurtled through the void, cold, fast, inevitable. One night, the sky burned. A meteor, 6 miles wide, struck near what we now call Yucatan. The earth shook, the air ignited, the seas heaved, and the world was cloaked in darkness. Ash blotted out the sun. Plants withered. The great reptiles, the rulers of land and sky, fell. Not in moments, but in months. Famine, fire, a collapse written in stone and bone. This was the Cretaceous-Paleogene extinction event, a punctuation mark written in flame. But in the silence that followed, from burrows and hollows, from the shadows of those who had lived small, another lineage emerged. Mammals. They had been here all along. Soft-bodied, milk-bearing, nocturnal. But now, the stage was theirs. They warmed themselves from within, nursed their young, and carried life in wombs rather than shells. They filled the gaps. Rodents gnawed through fallen logs. Primates clambered through recovering canopies. Whales returned to the sea, while others took to the plains. The earth healed, and with each passing epoch, mammals grew. In size, in brain, in reach. The Eocene brought strange beasts, giant flightless birds, tusked herbivores, tiny horse-like creatures tiptoeing through forest mists. But one family among them, not yet special, not yet named, would one day gaze upward and wonder. They had hands. They had eyes that saw depth. They had minds that began to remember. The age of mammals was not just survival. It was the beginning of imagination. From the ashes of extinction, evolution did not weep. It invented. In the soft green canopy of Earth's reborn forests, something small leapt from branch to branch, fingers grasped, eyes focused, balance and vision danced together. These were primates, not yet human, not yet myth, but already different. They lived not by size, but by perception. They mapped the world with memory, navigating not only space, but relationships. They did not roar. They remembered. Their hands, once used for climbing, began to explore, to touch the world not just for survival, but for curiosity. And the forests gave them stories: fruit, tools, play, danger. With every generation, brains grew, folding inward, making room for thought. Some stayed in trees, but others ventured down, testing the forest floor, walking upright for moments at a time. Climate changed. Forests thinned into grasslands, and in this shifting world, those who could adapt their behavior instead of their bodies survived. They learned to use rocks as tools, to crack bones, to open nuts, to shape their fate. They groomed, they taught, they mourned. From these ancestors came many branches: lemurs, monkeys, apes, each an echo of a shared design. But one branch, small, clever, upright, would walk a different path: the genus Homo. Not yet sapiens, but rising. With every stone chipped, every flame kindled, the story gathered momentum. The stars still spun above, unseen. But on Earth, the first minds were waking, not just to live, but to understand. The winds shifted over the African savannas, carrying dust, seeds, and footprints. They walked upright now, not hunched in shadow, but balanced, scanning horizons, hands free to shape the world. These were the early humans, Homo habilis, Homo erectus, bearers of tools, kindlers of fire. And fire was more than warmth. It was memory, a place to return to, a signal in the dark. They gathered around it. They cooked. They shared. They spoke. Not with grammar or poetry yet, but with gesture, tone, rhythm. The ancestors of language flickering between tongues. They hunted in groups. They planned. They passed knowledge from mouth to ear, from elder to child. And with that, time changed. Because now time could be remembered. They painted in ochre and charcoal, hands pressed against cave walls, red deer, spirals, stars. Marks not of survival, but of story. And then came Homo sapiens, slim, agile, clever, capable of wonder, capable of war. They crossed rivers, climbed mountains, carved tools, built shelters, wove fiber and faith into tribes. They stood beneath the stars and for the first time looked up not with fear, but with questions. Who are we? Why are we? Where did this all begin? And so began, not the end of evolution, but the birth of awareness. Earth had taken 4.5 billion years to look back at itself, to name things, to dream beyond its sky. From singularity to silence, to starlight, to stone tools, to science. From dust to us. Now, lie still. Let the breath you take be not just your own, but the echo of stars, the whisper of oceans, the pulse of a planet that dreamed itself awake. You are not separate from this story. You are the newest sentence in an ancient script. In your bones is the calcium of dead suns. In your blood, the iron of exploded giants. In your thoughts, the quiet voice of molecules that once wandered aimlessly through time. You, a being of memory, of fall, of language and longing, carry the weightless thread of every cell before you. The universe did not create life, then step away. It became life. It became you. When you look up at the night sky, you're not looking out. You're looking back, across time, across all that ever was. That distant light, that is your sibling, your ancestor, your mirror. The Big Bang never stopped. It still echoes in microwave murmurs, in your heartbeat, in the spaces between each thought. We live in its aftermath, but we also live in its purpose, to see, to remember, to wonder. So breathe in, not just air, but 13.8 billion years of becoming. And as you rest, know this: the universe is not above you. It is not beyond you. It is you, and it is still unfolding.